Hey guys, Sam back with you here mid-morning, Wednesday, December 27th. I had some members looking for an update on Bitcoin, or pardon me, on Dash to Bitcoin and the dollar tether. So I've got it up here. Now this is on Polo. They wanted it on Bittrex, but I've got all my work on Polo. So we're gonna do it on Polo, and you can extrapolate this because it'll be very close on Trex. Okay, so I've shown this chart before. This was, Dash trades very technically. This was the surprising move. This big sell-off here, and as I said, I've shown this before in prior videos. It ends up being remarkably technical. We can see right there. So it absolutely wicks the median line, and then we get that reaction, right? So that's Andrew's median line trading principle number 2. Is that when the market taps the median line, it will often make a pivot there, a significant pivot, and we can see that's exactly what we got there. So it was deep, right? It was, deeper than I did not get that. We had been trying to buy it along the way, but now we did catch some good trading in here off of the 1-2-1-2, and you can see here it challenges the low, but it doesn't quite get there. So technically, we can still call this a 2. We still have a 1-2, albeit a very deep one. And interestingly, how it tapped that. As I recall, we were working off the modified when we were buyers. We tried to catch it right here, but interestingly, because of the depth there, I think that was the 786. But as is often the case, it's the simple one is the one that gets it, right? So the one that you would. First, if you just teed it up and looked where it went, that was so deep, we thought, that seems unlikely for a 2, but there it is, staring you in the face. So there's been a couple of, difficult swings here in Dash, even though, you can go back in hindsight and see how technically it traded. There was a period here where we thought this was the start of it. We thought we had a 1-2. There were a lot of times where it looked like it was going to go. But here now we have a very clear wave structure here, so I can take this off, knowing that this is a good pivot we can work from. And so it would appear that we have a 1-2-1-2. So very bullish longer term if this count is going to hold. So here's our 1-2. This can't be the 3, so we get a 1-2-1-2, implying much higher prices. So if you look on the larger degree here in white, that would suggest that we're going up. We're going to attempt to go up and complete this 5-wave sequence here in blue to complete the third of the larger degree. You see that? So we're here now. You could be a buyer right here. This is, right where you'd expect it. You're seeing it stabilize here and start to move higher. So you could put a stop under the 50. There's, 4.7 to 1. That's not a bad, that's really, actually, if you wanted to be, you could put the stop even tighter. If you wanted to take a swing at it here on the assumption that you've got a good pivot in here. So if I open this up here, this might be worth just checking this to see if there's our low. So too steep for the original. If we go to one of our modifiers, see if we catch a corner of it. Well, shift is not quite. It's not perfect. See, the down up, kind of creates a distortion here. So a break through the median line here would be a good sign. Let's leave that off. So we get an ABC that's into a 4. We're right in the pocket here. We've got the Vegas wave giving a little support. We've got just where we would expect the 4th, between the 38 and the 50. So that's a reasonable spot to be buying. So now looking for pitchforks on the way up. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So the dominant swing, so we catch the median line here. So that's a good example there of just trying to put the puzzle pieces together. Which swings is the market responding to? So when in doubt, you always pull back to the larger degree, which is why I started here on the 1-2 of the largest degree to see if that median line would play a role here. And so it looks like we might be getting some evidence here. But remember, we're just kind of it's a test run there. So why do I go to the modifier here? Because if we go original, we get a reaction here. So here you can see it. We go outside of it here. So we'd have to put on the median line. We'd have to go to the 2 and the 3. Let's see there, and even the 3 to catch that. So that contains it, and we get our deep corner pocket here. So if you look at that in context of the algos pulls. So we get our 2. Again, we know a 2 can go between the 50 and the 786. 786 is about as deep as you want to give it for a good second. So we get the 786 here, and then all the way up to the negative 1618, and we finally get the median line. It takes a while to get there, but eventually, as is often the case, it will make it to the median line. In fact, a failure to make the median line is a significant tell that the market is weakening. So given that we hit that, so let me pull some of these outside. I never start with those on. It's only when we have a move that goes that wide from the dominant pivot. So we have that one. So then now that we've moved outside of it, then I would start checking the alternates. And not quite right there, and then go to the modified. That gets it just right. So it would appear, though, since we have this symmetry here from the upper parallel down to the 1.5, right to the median line, this seems like a really reasonable place to be a buyer here. You might give this a little more room. You might give that a little bit more room. So there's 3-to-1. You know, if we're going to go up for the 5th, you know, this is just trader's choice as to how much room you want to give it. You know, my assumption is always, if we're going to turn at the median line, you're trading off of the premise that you've got your pivot in. So if you're going to work from that, then you're just looking for more validation. Can I find any other technical confluence there to suggest that I've got a good pivot? So if I pull that over so you can see it, well, we come just shy of the 100% of the A projected from the B. So I like all of that. I think that's a very reasonable place to be a buyer here. I like the risk reward. You know, there's 4.5-to-1. If that's gonna, I'm very bullish dash long term. So that's a good opportunity as far as I'm concerned to get long, looking for that 5th, knowing that ultimately I'm just completing. Potentially, it would appear that we would just be completing the 5th of the 3rd. Right? So if that's the case, then we'd be pulling a retracement from swing low to the completion, from the 2 low to the completion of the 3rd, looking for the 4th. Right, do you see that? So we're completing a 5 wave into the 3rd, but our next pull would be looking for the relationship from the swing low of the 2 to the swing high of the 3, assuming we get up there. Assuming we get there, and that's a good target. There's your algo target. So assuming we get there, then I'd be looking for that. So that's where you have a target where you know, either you're trailing with a stop or you're looking to take profit there, anticipating that we come back for the 4. Right? So how am I on time? That's 7 minutes. Okay, so that's good. So let me go look at this. I've got it, if I can find it fast enough. Here, I have it. Okay, here it is. They also want to see it on the tether. Okay, so this is a little trickier. This is a pretty tricky count, which is why I'm doing it on Polo and not Bittrex. Sorry, guys. It's just so much here. I didn't want to try and recreate it here because this is a good couple of months of wave counting. So we're working from, now take note here, I have it in log scale so we can see it. So we're working from the premise that we have a good pivot down here at this 2 low before we start. So if I take it out of log scale, it's just a little bit easier to see it because of the extreme, because of how far the move has gone already. So now I got to put it in auto. Okay, so this is a good example of always going back to check your dominant pivots to see what the market is responding to. So the fact that this median line is still coming into play. Now, of course, as we're outside here, we could certainly put the outside, put the 2 on, and that seems to catch it just nicely. So here we get our 1, 2. So we have this very detailed, we get a complete wave count. So we got a 1, 2. Here's our 3. We come down for the 4. The reason I have confidence in this is because we don't overlap the 1. Again, that does not happen randomly. So what I see here is a 4, and then I get an expanded flat. This was very tricky. I remember when that was happening. We get a 1, 2, 3 into an expanded flat. Here, down for the 4. I like that count because I don't overlap here, so I feel confident that I've got my C in and my 4 in, and then we get a very clean 5 wave up to complete the 1 wave here of this larger degree. Okay, so there's our 1 completed. Here's our 2. Now this is skewed because I'm in. It won't look the same on your chart unless you put it into log scale. So I get my completed largest degree 1 wave. Here's my 2. And now we go into this, again, this extension here where it looks like we've completed the fifth of the third. So now we wait. We sit and we wait. We have a dominant pivot here as potentially our 1. We have our 2. Note how prior resistance, interesting, isn't it? Prior resistance holds the support. Then we get a 1, 2. This subdivides again. Now I'm on the 4-hour here, so let me open this up a little bit more for you so you can start to see this. So this gets very, very tricky in here, very tricky. But we do get a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we get this. We had this volatility in here, which, you know, this took some time. I had to go down to the 15-minute to get this. The tricky part being this spike here. So it would be an easy mistake to make to think that we were just going up to complete the third here. But this swing low here, that can't be relative to this count because it overlaps the 4. So this has to complete here. Then we go into this very choppy expanded flat yet again, where we get the B high here. It's a tricky count. So we get an A, B, C into an A, then we get the B, then we come down for the C. A tricky count. You know, as to the value that it offers to us now, it's the confirmation that this is our pivot, because then we get a 1, 2, and we hold the low. So we get a higher low, and then we start to go up and we complete the fifth here. So that gives us confidence now that we get a completed 5-wave structure to finish the third. Right? So now that median line from way, way back still affecting the market. Still affecting the market. We hover, we touch it. So now you'd have to look at that and say, okay, I'm looking for my fourth, but I'm expecting complexity in the correction. So likely I've got an A, and we've got the B or we're putting in the B here before coming down for a C. So it's hard to tell. So right now we'd just be pulling fibs. So from the A, so that's it, right to the 50 here. We've just bounced a little bit. This would imply to me that potentially we've got one more swing lower to come down and complete a C wave. Well, we're looking for that relative to the 2, right? The lower parallel to this median line that's gone back, you know, since the summer, damn near. So now if I open this up, right, as a potential target here, so that's our lower parallel to the median line. Well, what I'm looking for is the fib relationship between my wave 2 here to my 3. Right? Remember, it's log scale, so it's going to look a little different. I've already come and tested the 50, gone to and through. The 233 holds it. I'm getting my bounce. So am I going here, which is this pattern that we see in crypto all the time, where we get the shallow C? Are we going to go down and check the 618? That certainly would make sense. Anywhere, the expectation would be between the 3 and the 4. That's where you would anticipate it in more traditional Elliott formation. But this is, you know, a very tricky count, very complex, a lot of volatility. So, you know, you're just playing the odds. Right now, that looks to me like it's complete. I would anticipate complexity in the correction. So I would not be a buyer here on the shallow C. I just wouldn't. I think there's too much opportunity for this to come down here. At the very least, let's look for a check of the 50, and then I like it here at the upper parallel. So my entries would be somewhere in this range. You can see the alarm that I have. I have an alarm on the edge of the lower parallel because I want to be alerted if we go there. So I'd be looking in this area. That's where I'd be looking for that C wave. Now we could still, if we come here and we hit the parallel, we get this consistent pattern here of the C wave being higher than the A wave, which we just, again, as I've said in many videos, we're seeing all over crypto. So it becomes a question of do we get one more push up here to get an A, B, C into the B wave high, or are we done here? And now we come down, we're looking for the C. I'm on a 4-hour. If we go down to the 1 hour, well, we're looking for subdivision. So we could have a truncated C, so that would look like this. So we'd get an A, B into a C, potentially. Let me change the color. We get a truncated C to give us that B high. I don't love that because that's not typical, but the fact that we keep wicking the median line gets my attention. So potentially I've got my A wave here, the extreme move down. I can get a 5-wave sequence into an A. I do get a 3-wave into that potential pivot here. But I think, again, it's it's out of proportion relative to the size of the prior move that we're correcting. So I think we're likely here putting in a C, and then we've got one more move down. We'd want to look for subdivision there to see a 5-wave sequence. And then when we can see that with a little divergence and maybe some help from the oscillators, then we start probing for that 4th on the anticipation that we're going much, much higher because we're still completing a 5-wave sequence. This is just potentially, at least as I'm counting it. This is our 3rd. We're looking for our 4th before we take off to put in new highs for the 5th, which could be, 3,800s, not unreasonable. 3,000 for sure. Certainly a reasonable target relative to where we've been. So we've got to look at that. So if I go all the way back out to the 4-hour, and we think about where we could be going, if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, we got a lot of upside, right? I remember people were freaking out when I said that the dash could get to 1,000, and that seemed extreme at that time. But now, 4,000 seems very doable. So our 5th, somewhere up here, since this median line continues to influence the market, I certainly would want to keep that somewhere, if not in my dominant count. At least I'd keep that as a count off to the side so I could watch for continued reactions to the median line and to the parallels. So that's what I see. I see higher prices. It's now just a question of waiting for the right opportunity to get long and take a ride up for the 5th. Okay, guys, I'll wrap it there.